So let's meet the e-board. So just a quick introduction. My name is Unadi. I'm the president of BITS. I'm a BIT Finance double major with a minor in econ, and I'm a rising junior.
My name is Aishwarya. I'm currently the vice president. I'm also a BIT Finance double major with a minor in economics, and I'm also a rising junior.
Hi everyone, my name is Shoria. I'm the BIT secretary, and I'm pursuing a double major in BIT and Finance, and I'm also a rising junior.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean Kadeep, or also Sean. I'm the treasurer of Bates. I'm also a BIT and Finance double major with a concentration in global business, and I'm a part of the class of 2022.
Here we have Bernesh Pamipati. He's the director of events. He's a BIT and statistics major, and he's also a rising junior.
Hey everyone, I'm Bhakti. I'm a rising junior as well. I serve as the director of tech for BITS, and I'm also doing a data analytics and finance co-op at Merck. I love my experience there so far, and I'm so excited for our event today.
Hi everyone, my name is Shriven. I am currently the Director of Corporate Relations. I am a double major in BIT and Finance and also a double minor in Health Admin Statistics. I'll be a rising junior.
And here we have Avik. He's our director of marketing. Is he on? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Avik. I'm serving as the director of marketing. I'm also being finance double major, and I'm graduating in the class of 2023.
Right. Here we have Thad. He's our webmaster. He's a computer science and math/statistics major, as well as a rising junior.
Hi everyone, I'm Madhav, and I'm the editor-in-chief. I'm also a rising senior, majoring in BIT and Finance.
And let's get started. So here's the agenda for today. First, we're going to have a fireside segment with our BITS alumni. We're going to ask a bunch of questions about college and careers. Then we're going to move on to an alumni mixer with those same alumni. And then next up, we have a segment from ZS Associates. They'll be talking about how to use data to enable business decisions. And lastly, we have Networking 101, where you'll get an ultimate guide to networking and resumes. So here's just a brief overview. You can see all of our alumni down there. You know, they work at a wide variety of companies and industries, so you'll get to hear a lot of cool things from them. We have our alumni mixer right afterwards, where we'll be using Zoom breakout rooms. Then we have a quick lunch break from 12:15 to 1:30, so a little bit over an hour. We have ZS Associates coming in, and then you'll get to learn how, you know, a Fortune 500 consulting company uses data to make impactful business decisions. And then we have networking from our very own Madhav and Josh, who are the editor-in-chief and our tech development chair, who will walk you through networking and resumes. And then we'll have a quick closing at 3:30. Just a reminder throughout the day, please make sure to check in at the end of each segment. That's how we'll be taking attendance. Even if you previously signed in for a previous segment, please check in at the end of each segment. And there's all of our social media online. Go ahead and give our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube a follow. Yeah, you can just stay updated with events and upcoming opportunities that way. And let's get started. So I'm just gonna. All right. So if you haven't checked in already, just take a moment to do that. So we're going to be introducing our panelists for today. All of these panelists have been former BITS alumni and have served on the e-board in one position or another over the years. So the format of the panel fireside chat will be some quick introductions, which I'm about to do right now. Panel 1, which will consist of our alumni from Epic, Scholastic, and KPMG. Panel 2, which will consist of our professionals from Bloomberg, Goldman Sachs, Dell, and Axis Group. And then we'll have a mixer right afterwards. So introducing myself, I will be one of the moderators for the panel.
And I'll be the other moderator.
Yep. So here we have Omkar. He was actually our president for the last academic year. He's currently an associate solutions consultant at Axis Group, and he was a BIT and supply chain double major. Then next up, we have Aneri. She was vice president for the last academic year. She's currently a global data analyst at Bloomberg, and she did a BAIT major and a concentration in global business. Then we have Michael Kaplan. He was a secretary for our last academic year. He's currently a technical solutions engineer at Epic, and he was a BAIT major. We have Musa Sadiq. He was the outreach director for the last academic year. He's currently a business operations associate at Scholastic, and he was a BAIT and supply chain double major. We have Daniel Marcu, who was the co-event director for the last academic year, and he's currently a risk management associate, specifically data and analytics at KPMG, and he was a finance major. And then actually from our e-board, 2 e-boards ago, we have our co-president, Tanya Panda, who is currently a securities operations analyst at Goldman Sachs, and she was a BAIT and management double major. In the same academic year, the other co-president was Sid Dabulkar. He's currently a global supply chain manager at Dell, and he was also a BAIT supply chain double major. So first up, we're going to have our panelists, Michael, Musa, and Daniel. They'll be joining in a few minutes, so you can just take the time to check in until then. So yeah, just give us a few minutes.
Hey, so can you guys see me? Like, how do I check in exactly?
Oh, you don't have to check in, but we see you.
Okay. How do you guys get that cool background?
We have our amazing corporate relations team who helped us make these slides.
Oh, no, I was talking about behind your screen. So like, I see you, but behind you.
I see, yeah. So that's our marketing team. Shout out to Avik for making these amazing Zoom backgrounds. He made them himself.
Do you guys see me with it or no?
We do not. Do you want it? I can even make it right now.
Of course.
Okay, cool.
It looks cool.
All right. All right. So all of our panelists have joined the call. Please just take a second to introduce yourself before we move on to questions.
All right, I guess I can start. I'm Michael Kaplan. As you can see, I'm a technical solutions engineer at Epic Systems, which is a healthcare software company in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay, I guess I can go next. Hey, guys. Hey, Mike. Good to hear from you again, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
Everybody else, hey, guys. I'm Musa. I just started about a month ago at Scholastic as a business operations associate there. So if you're not familiar with Scholastic, they're a book and media publishing company. If you grew up in the States, you probably went to some sort of a book fair hosted by Scholastic at some point in elementary school. So that's the same company. And yeah, we're based out of New York, but right now everyone's based out of their homes. So.
All right, that's my cue. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. When I was at Rutgers, I was a BAIT and finance major, and currently I am a risk management associate at KPMG. I think my technical role is a business process analyst. So nice to see everybody.
All right, thank you for those introductions. So first off, we're going to start with some company questions. Ashwarya, you can begin. Oh, 1 second, get the slide to work. There we go. Okay.
So you all already mentioned your current roles. So can you just go into a little details about what your responsibilities and day-to-day are? And I guess we can just go in the same order. So Michael, Musa, and then Daniel.
Sounds good. So I as well just started beginning of August. So at least for now, all I have to do is train. I have 4 months of training. But once that's done, I'll have 4 customers, which will be hospitals. And when they have issues with our software, I'll be the point person and I'll be helping, delve into the code and kind of help with the small fixes. And then if I have to escalate to the software development team, I'll be working closely with them, making sure everything gets back on track. Additionally, I'm going to be in the cognitive computing work group and just kind of helping there wherever I can to streamline our systems and get a little more into that field.
Okay, yeah. So my group is a little bit unique in terms of the organizational structure for Scholastic itself. So I double majored in supply chain and BAIT when I was at Rutgers, and that's what sort of drew me to this role in particular, is because the COO of Scholastic is also the CTO of Scholastic. So really what my role entails is optimizing the supply chain, specifically operations within the supply chain, to make sure that, it's as efficient as it possibly can be, especially right now because our company just turned 100 years old. Well, it will be turning 100 years old in October. And so they have this big initiative that they're running called Operations 2020, where they're basically revamping the entire supply chain end to end to try to generate like millions of dollars of cost savings. So my role is to help run the analysis on the different segments within the supply chain and try to generate those cost savings as a result of this greater initiative of Operations 2020 that they have going on. So.
Okay, so at KPMG, there's a lot of levels of the groups. So we start off at the top of risk management, and then under that is data analytics. And in data analytics, there are 2 types of people, really. There's business process analysts and data analysts. We work closely together. I'm a business process analyst, and we work closely together to create and manage different sort of dashboards so that our clients, ourselves, we are able to monitor all the projects we do, all the tasks we do, so that we make sure that any risk is mitigated or just avoided altogether. And if anything goes wrong, of course, these dashboards have the ability to notify the users and the coders to let them know about any problems that can arise. Right now, I actually started on the 17th, so I haven't been able to do too much, but I've also been getting used to the process currently and getting acquainted with all of the projects we've been working on. I think that basically covers the questions.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have. So, how did you obtain your role?
So for me, it was all through Handshake pretty much. They contacted me through Handshake, and when I went through the process there, just a phone call, some like technical interviews where we did a little coding, and then they flew me out to Wisconsin for the final interview. Kind of by chance in this one. I hadn't heard of this company before they reached out, but once they did, I did some research and I found myself, seeing myself fit in pretty well there. So went with that.
Yeah. Unadi or Aishwarya, I guess, can we just get an idea of who's listening in here? Like, do you guys know if like anything about our participants? Are they juniors, freshmen?
Oh, I
do you
think
know?
the majority of them were rising juniors, and then I
Okay.
think the rest of it's kind of split between the other three.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Okay. No, I'm just trying to understand what might be the most useful in sharing. But okay. So I guess for how I obtained the role, yeah, I mean, it was just recruiting season crazy during the beginning of senior year. Just applying like to every single spot, fixing up my resume, just throwing applications pretty much everywhere. Because the advice that I always got was cast a wide net, and apply everywhere, and then you can be picky later on once you get offers. So that's pretty much what I was doing. So I was applying to like hundreds of places, and then a friend of mine works at Scholastic. He sent me this job description or posting that came out, and then they were also at the career fair. So I inquired about it, looked up a little bit more information about the company, because Scholastic wasn't on my radar at all. Like I wasn't even, I'd never imagined I would ever work for a company like that. But then the role itself seemed really cool, especially because, like I mentioned earlier, I was looking for something that was a good balance between supply chain and analytics. I didn't want one that was too heavy on either. I wanted a nice balance. So this was one of the few jobs that I applied to that looked like it was going to have that balance. And so I was really attracted to that. And then I applied, interviewed in their New York office. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, I probably should have listened to the cast a wide net approach, because I was very picky and selective when it came to internships in my junior year, and it ended up backfiring on me a little bit. So the KPMG internship that I got before the role was at the end of my junior year. So I think I applied at the end of April, and I got a call back. And up until finals week, I was on calls, on interviews, trying to secure the spot. So I think I actually got the internship probably the second week of May and started probably a month later. So definitely, I would say I would agree with what Musa said. Cast a wide net. Try and apply to as many positions that you think interests you and fits your skill set. But also don't give up if it's too late. I don't think there is necessarily a too late. So even at the end, I mean, one thing that ended up helping me get the internship was I think I was one of the first applicants. Like it came up on Handshake, and I think I applied almost instantly. So that might have set me a little bit apart. But besides that, yeah, it's just what I said before. And then after the internship, I got a call back sometime at the beginning of senior year to work for the company full time, and I accepted the offer.
Yeah, thank you
If
so
I
much.
can
Sorry, go ahead.
oops, sorry. If I could go back and add on to my answer. Well, I just wanted to point out, at least for me, Handshake was one of the most crucial aspects of job searching. It got really exhausting filling out individual applications for every company. I was trying to do the cast a wide net approach, and it gets really tough, if every single company has their own application, and it's really time consuming. So Handshake was my best friend.
Yeah, I agree. It was pretty useful.
Thank you so much for those responses. So for the next part, we kind of want to know a little bit about your experiences both in BAIT and Rutgers as a whole. So to start off, what BAIT skills are most relevant to your current job?
Yeah, all of them. Definitely the technical aspect. Learning to code was like definitely a key. In training, we're going over a bit of the basics, but having a background in programming and just the general concepts is like absolutely integral to my job. On the flip side, the service skills and like the general business background also plays in very nicely. So BAIT for me actually worked out very, very well for this position. I feel like I got a good sense of both the business side, talking to people, working in teams, and actually being able to like jump into code and understand what's going on there. As far as Rutgers goes, definitely how big Rutgers is, I think, is a huge plus in some aspects. It can get a little tricky when you don't have like proper guidance, but also I feel like Rutgers kind of throws you into the real world. You're responsible for yourself. No one's looking out over your shoulder, and I think that that's true in the workforce as well.
Yeah, you always hear the phrase people say like, "Oh, whatever you learn in college is useless. You end up not using it on the job." Honestly, my experience so far, at least, has been the total opposite. Like even in the month that I've been working so far, there have been so many times where I am sitting in a meeting or I'm on a one-on-one with somebody and they reference something that I distinctly remember learning about in one of my classes, whether it was BAIT or one of my supply chain classes or just the business core. So actually, I think like the classes themselves are very relevant and they're very practical. Mike was talking about the coding classes. Those are huge because you really want to spend as little time as possible like learning on the job, even though there will always be an element of that no matter what job you're in. You're going to always have to learn stuff related to that job on the job itself, but the less time you can spend doing that, the better, because then you can actually start to have an impact. You could start working on your projects, your tasks, and start driving value for the company and all that kind of stuff. So so these classes I think are really the coding classes are really big for me right now in my job. SQL is the biggest one. In previous internships, Python was really big for me, but for right now where I'm at full time is I haven't heard anything really about Python, but everything is SQL, because everything's about databases and looking at that information, creating dashboards based on those databases. So those are big in terms of skills that are relevant. So I would definitely say like you wanna know what kind of a role you want to go into or where you see yourself, and focus on the classes that give you those skills, because it can be very broad. There are lots of different options within the BAIT major itself, but if you're talking about double majoring or minoring, then it even adds more to that. So
Yeah, and I think you guys basically covered it, but just with the coding, I think the coding is important as well. But if you don't know the exact same coding language that your company uses, as long as you get the certain like idea of how coding works, like the formats and the lines, everything has a lot of similarities. So just understanding, I guess, the architecture of different types of programming languages would be a great start to having a BAIT related job. And I think the second most important one for me is enterprise data architecture, even though I didn't take the class. So I don't know if it's going to exactly line up, but that's the type of stuff that right now is important to my job. And I wish I would have taken that class during my time at Rutgers.
Thank you. Now, moving on to the next question. BAIT is a pretty versatile major, and it's, one of 5 majors in the business school. So for our underclassmen on the call, could you talk a little bit about at what point did you decide why BAIT was the right choice for you?
Yeah. So I knew I was going Rutgers Business School, but I didn't pick him. I picked a major pretty early. It was before freshman year even started. I decided on BAIT. I just went to a little seminar and they talked a little bit about it, and it seemed like the perfect mix for me. Again, I'm talking a lot about it, but I wanted a business background. I wanted to go. Eventually my goal is management more so than the technical side. But I took AP Comp Sci my senior year of high school, and it was just so much fun. I've never had that much fun in a class. And the same held true for the programming classes at Rutgers. Those were my favorite classes. Um, so I knew BAIT for me would be perfect, having a mix of management and the technical skills. And say it worked out. I definitely think I made the right choice for myself.
Yeah, kind of similar, I guess. When I started at Rutgers, I knew I wanted to do business without a doubt. But I also understood that there was a growing need to have technical skills and even just know at least the basics of programming and coding and things like that. So originally I was thinking about, because I didn't know about BAIT when I joined. Originally I was gonna do like either finance or supply chain and then do like a minor in CS to gain that. Thank God I didn't go down that route because and I figured out about BAIT around that time, and I realized that was exactly what I was looking for, where it's a really good balance between the business like know-how, like the strategy and understanding like really like what drives businesses and understanding business value and all that, but also knowing the technical applications that go into that, which is exactly what I was looking for. So I did that, but I also paired it with supply chain again because I wanted something a little bit more on the strategy side and more on like the business, like operation side. So that's why I decided to pair the two of them. But pretty much right off the bat, I knew BAIT was the future because it's exactly what most companies are looking for. They're looking for people that can understand business, but also have that technical experience. So pretty much right away, once I was exposed to it, I knew it was the right one.
Yeah, I also it was a pretty quick decision for me as well. My high school experience was very technical. I came from an engineering focused high school. So I've done a lot of computer science and electrical engineering type stuff. Of course, the electrical engineering isn't as relevant, but that stuff was the type of stuff I enjoyed. I wanted to get more into business at the end of my 4 years at high school. And it just happened to be that BAIT was the right combination of my interests, my skill sets, etc. And yeah, I ended up choosing finance as well, just as a small aside, because if you go and try and analyze things that you don't understand, it kind of gets difficult. So I just wanted to make sure that since financial stuff was one of the harder things for me to understand early on, that it would be better to get a major that would help me at least develop some knowledge that would be a good backdrop for my major.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's really helpful for a lot of students on this who are kind of undecided right now. So to go on to our next question.
Hey, just one quick thing. I saw a question on the chat. I was trying to type, but I can't type and talk at the same time. So somebody was asking, I don't know how you did that, Mike, but someone was asking about double majoring, if it gives you an advantage. And somebody else asked about BAIT and supply chain. If you can double major. And like definitely do it because it can't hurt you. And RBS actually does a really good job of making it manageable because there's a lot of courses that overlap. The business core is not that credit intensive. Like you can do it, especially if you're a freshman or a sophomore and you're still trying to decide if you want to do it or not. I would say take the chance. And the worst case scenario is you're like a senior or like you're a first semester senior and you realize you're not going to finish one of the majors on time, then you drop it. It's like not the end of the world. You still will walk away with the one, but you try to get the other one, and at the bare minimum, you're getting those skills. So I would highly recommend it. And it helped me with gain an advantage over a lot of people when applying to jobs and interviewing. So I would highly recommend it. Personally, I mean, obviously a huge advocate of the bait and supply chain duo, but I know a lot of people who do the bait and finance duo. I think I've even seen people who do bait and accounting. Yeah, I mean, short answer. But if you have specific questions about supply chain, even this is a Bits Expo, so we shouldn't talk supply chain. But if you want to talk, we could talk offline afterwards. I'm happy to do that.
If I can tack on then, so I'm definitely, yeah, so double major if you can. For me, it wasn't right. And I remember at the other panel with the other alumni, when I was sitting in the participant chair, it was a little intimidating that everyone was double majoring and I was just doing bait, and I was thinking I might have some trouble. So if you can, definitely double major. But if you're just doing bait, if you focus and you make sure like you get your bait background, you can still definitely succeed and jobs will still be hiring. So don't be worried. But if you can, definitely a plus.
So to kind of go into our next question, what are some of the challenges you faced in either past internships or on your current job, and how did you overcome them?
So in my current job, I think it's a little too early to tell, but I interned at AT&T last summer. And for me, the tricky part was I was working with a computer science major as like my partner, and it was a little tricky where they thought like I would lie, because I didn't have as much technical experience as him, and some of the concepts were a little over my head, and I felt maybe that I wasn't like as prepared for the role. So that was a little tough to, I have a technical major, but I'm not getting as much experience coding as, a computer science major. So it's a little tough to like keep up at some points. As far as overcoming them, it is tough. I mean, they do have more experience, but you have the knowledge and you have the foundations there. And once you're on the job, it's really, they give you time, and they give you time to catch up and get up to speed and get used to what you'll be doing. So I think if you're working for a company that understands where you're coming from, they'll give you enough time, they'll give you the resources to get you up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna run into tons of challenges with every new job, because every job is gonna be sort of a new kind of animal, and it's gonna be very different. So I think like the biggest challenge really is about, in the early stages at least, is about like understanding what's feasible for you within the time that you have with the company. So for example, if you're doing a co-op and you're there for 6 months, I think your objectives will be very different than if you're in an internship that's only 10 weeks. Like they're very different, and I did both. So I can tell you like the way you approach work is just completely different between those two. So I would say like as like a challenge that I see a lot of people dealing with when you start at the job, like, and this is like a good thing to keep in mind always, like they say, begin with the end in mind, meaning like think about like really what's realistic for you to achieve over the 10-week span or the 6-month time span. And then work your way backwards, like figure out what you need to do in order to get there. I think a lot of times when you're an intern or you're a co-op, like you're just like being thrown in whatever direction like the company is throwing you in, and you get like thrown on random projects sometimes, and it becomes difficult to really understand what your place is. I think that's a really big challenge, is like you don't know what your place in the company is or what you really can or should be doing. So like you should be asking questions related to that. You should build up a good connection with your manager or whoever it is early on, so that you can really understand and make the most out of your time, whether it's the 10-week or the 6 months or anything else really. So the challenge is knowing what your place is, and like where you want to go. How you overcome it, I think, is again having open and specific conversations about this with your manager. It'll also make you look really good because they'll see that you're forward thinking. They'll see that you're trying to get somewhere. You're not just like rolling with whatever is being thrown at you, no sense of direction. So I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, this kind of relates. I think one of the biggest challenges I've personally faced is not knowing exactly how to accomplish a task I'm assigned. And once you're faced with that kind of challenge, you have two options. One is to basically just head first, try and solve it yourself. And the other way is just to ask for help. And I think that the real solution is probably somewhere in between the two. I don't think as soon as you have a question, you should immediately ask for help. You should try and see how much you can try and understand it by yourself without doing anything necessarily. Uh, and then when you go and ask for help, it also shows that you're trying to put in some effort to understand things before you go and ask for help. So you're not just basically needing someone to hold your hand through everything. You're just trying to understand everything yourself and then get help. And that's also what Musa was saying with communicating and how it helps. The second major problem, I mean, not major, but the second problem that I faced is time management. And that could just be because they don't know what your abilities are and you don't know. Well, I think it's basically that there's a disconnect between what your skills are and how your skills are presented to the team. So you might be given a project that it takes you longer to complete than they want, or you might be given a project that you complete really quickly. And then the harder part of completing something quickly is that you have to go and ask for more work or just be sitting around doing nothing. So, I mean, both of these problems, the solution has to do with communication. And it's done in a way that's respectful and in a way that basically shows that you're willing to continue learning and without being too pushy. But I don't think there's a way to be, well, it's complicated. I think everyone should try their own way to communicate. There's no real formula for what to say or how to say it. But yeah, communication is key.
Yeah, one other thing that came to mind while you were talking, Daniel, is about like sort of in line with knowing what your role is. I've seen a lot of interns make the mistake where they treat themselves like they're full-time or like they're a full-time employee. And so sometimes like full-time employees will do things like, and I'll give you a very basic example, and a lot of people disagree with me on this. So even maybe Mike and Daniel, you guys may disagree with me on this, but like I'm pretty like strict on this one. Is that like you may work for a company where there's like no official dress code, for example, and you see there's people who are like who have been at the company for 10 years and they're coming to work in jeans and a t-shirt. Like you're an intern, you're there for 10 weeks, like dress professionally while you're there. Like once you're like you know, you've made your mark at the company and you can demand like that level of respect, like dress professionally. And that's like a very basic example. Maybe that one doesn't matter as much, but I've seen it like in much more impactful areas where, like, for example, interns are taking extended lunch breaks. And they think they could just do that because they see other employees doing that. Or like just random things like that like you have to understand your place. You're there for a specific reason. So sometimes I can see that disconnect as well. Like make sure you always like try to sort of separate yourself as to what's, you know, expected of you as an intern versus what might be the expectation of somebody who's full-time. Now I'm not saying you gotta wear a suit or something like that, but just generally it's more about the principle than that specific example. So.
Yeah, one big thing, I worked for a company a while back. I won't name the name, but one thing that people that were with the company did a long time was they would wear earbuds and they would just listen to music while they were doing their work. And they could probably get away with it. I don't necessarily think that it hindered them. But when I was in the group and it was a small team, you just have to wonder whether or not you should be putting in the earbuds too and listening to music as well. And I ended up doing it for a little bit until one of the managers came over and had to ask me a question I didn't hear the first time he asked. So that was a little bit embarrassing. So I think the best thing to do is just act professionally, know that you're just starting off, and until you've really solidified your placement within the company, you should try and be, just try to make yourself seem as professional as possible.
Thank you for those really good tips. I think there's a good amount of juniors on this call, so they could definitely use all of those tips on their junior internship as well as when they, you know, go into full time. So So our next question we have is, how has being an e-board member of BITS defined your experience at Rutgers?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a big part. I was just on eBoard for my senior year, but it was really key in just going to all those events and being able to talk to those representatives of those companies. And first of all, my favorite part about BITS in general was alumni panels. So you don't have to be on eBoard for that. But I think seeing how people who majored in bait, like where they ended up and what they're doing, that was like the most important part for me. I got a much better sense of possible options and how those aligned with what I wanted to do. Additionally, met like a decent amount of connections through those career fairs. Like the Bay Specific Career Fair was really interesting. Got to talk to a lot of cool people at Deloitte and stuff, and it really just helped. You know, you get a much better sense of your major and where you lie within that, and what you can look at after school.
Yeah, I mean, Bits is awesome. And I'm genuinely not like just saying that. Like it was one of the best decisions I think I made in my time at Rutgers to be involved with them. And shout out to the e-board for this year for putting together these awesome events, and also for all of you guys who are attending on a Saturday morning. I was honestly expecting it to be like nobody here, but I'm really impressed with the turnout. So this is awesome. But I mean, being on eBoard, like Mike mentioned, was like it gives you exposure. Like that's the bottom line. Like you'll get the chance to meet alumni. You'll get the chance to meet professionals in the field. You'll get a chance to network. You'll get a chance to do like all of those things. And that's not just by being on eBoard. That's just being a part of the club in general. Because especially because like bait is one of the newer majors in RBS, so it's still constantly developing. Even in our time within those 4 years at Rutgers, like between my freshman year and senior year, I think they added a bunch of courses, they dropped a bunch of courses, like things were changing constantly. And I could see that's going to probably continue for a little while because it's so new. I forget when the first graduating class was, but it wasn't too long. I think maybe 2014 or something like that. It wasn't very long ago. So like things are constantly changing. So being part of like a bigger group like BITS, where everyone's sort of trying to figure it out together and they're putting out these resources that will help you in that journey, I think is huge. Like the bait specific career fairs and all the networking events, like those things really set it apart. And I mean, that's why I think it's a testament to the fact that you have alumni that are willing to come back and speak and be part of this because of the value that it provided to us.
Yeah, and I think I was also a senior when I joined the BITS e-board for the first time. But once you're a senior and you're part of BITS, I feel like you also have an additional role besides the one you're given to sort of like be a mentor to people that come to you. And that's both good for the mentors and the mentees, because the mentors can just help people see where they've made mistakes, where they've gone wrong, where they've gone right. And it's a good reflection for them as well, so that they know not to make the same mistakes in the future. What would they advise to others is probably what they should be advising to themselves moving forward as well. So I think, and I can probably speak for all of us here and whoever is going to be part of the next panel, that we are definitely, even now, are probably willing to reach out to you guys. And if you guys have any more concerns down the line, we can maybe give Unadi the contact information or something, or Ashwarya, and you guys can put together a document or something. And yeah, basically there's a good community in BITS overall, and you guys should be very happy to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I threw my email in the chat. I guess maybe if you guys want to do the same, and yeah, sure, feel free to share it with whoever, Unadi and Ashwarya. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just put in the message that you were at the BITS Expo, because I don't connect with random people. So if you just send me a message, like you just connect with me, I'm probably not going to accept. So just put in the message you were at the BITS Expo, and then honestly, like I'm being so like, if you want to set up a meeting or something afterwards to talk more, like I'm more than happy to do that for anybody that wants to talk more about this stuff.
Yeah, thank you. And so just in the interest of time, I was thinking we can jump to the last question that we have. So just one more, I guess. I guess we can skip this one. So what piece of advice would you give students preparing for recruiting right now?
Well, I think we definitely touched on this, and it's cast a wide net. Can't undersell that. You never know like what roles are going to work out. Sometimes you apply to something and say, this doesn't really seem for me. But if you get farther in that interview process and you're really clear, do research on the company, and you see yourself there, go for it. I definitely didn't see myself in Madison, Wisconsin. That wasn't where I thought I would end up, but gave the company a chance, and it seemed like a great fit. Additionally, work with everyone you have, your professors, your parents, BITS alumni, BITS e-board. Just make sure that's as like touched up as it can be. It's easy to have like a really, really good background, but not convey that well in a resume. And vice versa, you could have a pretty limited background, but have a stellar resume that really highlights your strengths, and that'll put your foot in the door.
Yeah, I guess on that last point, your resume should be a working document. I think I made maybe 40 or so resumes in my 4 years at Rutgers. Like I kept redoing, I would throw out the whole thing, start over. Like it happened so many times. So your resume needs to be a working document. Make sure you're constantly updating it and making sure that it tells the best story. I totally agree with Mike about seeking help from everywhere you can and casting the wide net. I guess specifically for now, because you guys are faced with the challenge of online recruiting, which is something I don't think we had to deal with. And it's definitely going to be a challenge. I would say use this downtime, because I'm sure a lot of you have the downtime, to upskill as much as humanly possible. Because I think my guess, our semester was virtual for like the second half. And I'm guessing you guys are virtual this upcoming semester also. You're going to have a lot more time on your hands. Like school is probably not going to be as demanding as it normally is. So use this time to learn coding languages, to pick up a new software, to learn a new skill. Like you guys, just by being at Rutgers, everyone has access to LinkedIn Learning. I don't know if everyone knows that, but you have an account on LinkedIn Learning, and it's great. There are so many opportunities there. So I would say like now that you have that like free time, like really schedule it into your day so that you're constantly upskilling, and that will hopefully allow you to stand out more during these applications and the recruiting process overall. The last thing I would say is like it's a numbers game, right? So it's going to be very discouraging when you're applying to dozens of places or even hundreds of places and you're not getting a response, which will be the case for the majority of you. You just will not hear back from a lot of companies, but don't let that discourage you. Like just, it's a numbers game. Just keep playing the odds, keep putting out your applications in as many places as you can. And then you'll eventually get that match and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and I'll try to make it fast since I know you guys have one right after this. But I think one of the bigger problems or challenges, probably better to say, that you guys will be facing is that it's a lot easier to apply online. So I think the pool of applicants for everything is going to just go way higher and really quickly. And I mean, laziness is no longer a big problem because maybe you didn't want to go to a career fair because you had something better to do. But like nowadays, there really isn't many things better to do. So you're going to just see a lot of people flooding job positions. So my big advice on top of what Musa and Michael were saying is to basically focus on little things that could help set you apart, whether it be when you're interviewing online, just wearing a nice shirt, propping up the camera so you're head on with the screen, just things that could set you apart against other applicants that might just be going ahead just with not caring too much about specifics.
Oh, thank you, Michael, Musa, and Daniel, for an amazing panel. We got to learn a lot of interesting insights, and I'm sure everyone on the call was able to benefit. Now, for those of you that can attend, we'll see you again at the Alumni Mixer soon, in about an hour. So yeah, thank you for joining, and we're going to introduce our next panel.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, so next up we have Sid Volker. Actually, I'll give you all a chance to introduce yourselves. So just unmute yourselves going from left to right and introduce yourselves.
Oh my God, look at this. So many beautiful smiling faces on the call. Tanya, oh my God.
Hi.
This is so cool. Hi, Tanya. Hey, Omkar. Hey, Anadi. Hey, everyone. Oh my God. This is what a
Hey,
throwback.
Sid.
Hey, what's up? Hey, Neri. So, hey, everyone. I'm Sid. For those of you who don't know, I was the president, what now, like 2 years ago or 1 year ago? 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And I was a business analytics and supply chain management major at Rutgers, graduated 2019. And it was what a ride, honestly. Just thinking back at like college and how things used to be. Right now, I work as a global supply manager at Dell. So I work in supply chain management, working with a world-class group of people in supply chain. I was also in planning before this. So I was a graphics card planner. And if you think about COVID and just a lot of the other things that have happened in the world, even just like a few months ago, you'll know that how difficult it can be to plan. And when you think about just like all the different consumers and all the different customers that Dell has, that can be like really, really challenging to plan. So it was a great and an amazing learning experience for me. And yeah, I'm just happy to hear your guys' questions, and I'm here if you need any advice.
Thanks, Sid. So nice to see you too. Hi guys, my name is Tanya. I was co-president with Sid 2 years ago, which is crazy how fast time flies. I was a BAIT and management double major, and I am currently working in the securities division as an operations analyst at Goldman. And it's so crazy. I'm like, again, like it's crazy how time flies. Like me and Sid were literally planning events like this. Not as cool as this, I must say. This is very cool.
Not as cool. This is so
but planning events like this 2 years ago, and it's so nice to be back and get to talk to everyone.
Thanks, Tanya. Hey, everyone. My name is Omkar. I don't know if you guys can all see me. I'm actually on my phone because I forgot my email password on my laptop. So this is me for today. If you don't know about me, I was president of BITS last year. Unfortunately, our year got cut short due to COVID, but I'm really happy with what this year's eBoard's doing. I majored in business analytics. I majored in BAIT and supply chain. I've recently started working at a place called Access Group, which is a data analytics and business intelligence consulting firm up in North Jersey. And I've been there since June. It's been a blast so far, just a lot of training. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. I'll pass it on to Aneri now.
Hi everyone, my name is Aneri. I was the vice president of BITS with Omkar on Omkar's eBoard last year. Right now I'm working at Bloomberg as a global data analyst, specifically on their entities team. So I joined in July, and right now I'm just working with the team on their base level data maintenance, which deals with entities like companies, funds, governments, things like that.
So thank you for those introductions. So for our first question, can you all just talk a little bit about your day-to-day responsibilities on your job?
Are we going left to right again? Or?
Oh yes, sorry, just go in the same order that you just introduced yourself.
Okay, sounds good. So my current role, as I said, was global supply manager. So basically what that means is for 13 weeks out, which is basically like a quarter, I ensure that we have parts for the company, and I also mitigate risk through like management of the parts for the Mellanox supplier that we have. So Mellanox is one of the suppliers that we have that makes network cards and switch boxes. And if you guys want to know what that is, you can hit me up a little bit later and I can send you a bunch of information on that. My day-to-day looks a lot like talking with a bunch of people, talking with the supplier, talking with planners, talking with people in different cross-functional groups to figure out what problems exist and what problems could exist in the future to like make a gap in the continuity of supply and trying to mitigate that risk. And then I would say about 50% of my job is also building a narrative, because people really want to know when there are problems, like what went wrong and who to point fingers at. And you really want to craft a good narrative to ensure that, number one, the blame doesn't go on yourself, but also it doesn't go on anyone whose fault it isn't. So really trying to root cause and solution. That's the bulk of my job. Yeah.
For me, I think it's definitely a little bit different than probably everyone on this panel because I'm definitely working more of a finance role, less of a tech role. But basically, I'm on the physical commodities team. So I'm supporting our physical commodities sales and trading desk, so specifically natural gas, metals, and power. And my day-to-day really varies every single day, which is one of my favorite parts about it. We work on our bigger structured deal. So whatever happens, if there's a big deal that's coming in through the pipeline, we're working on it, all hands on deck. And I'm on the confirmations team, so sending out confirmations to all of our clients. So really, I'm going to talk about pre-COVID day-to-day because I'm not a fan of the work from home environment, but like pre-COVID day-to-day, walk in. I am a very big believer in that you love your job as much as you love your coworkers, and I love my coworkers. So get some coffee, literally spend the first hour just talking to people and catching up on weekends and catching up on life, getting through your day-to-day, going through emails, talking to people. I think on an average, I talk to at least a bunch of different people at least 30 different people every single day from different teams, which is what I love about it. And then go through and wrap up. Really, it just like varies every single day. So there's really before instead of going into specifics, I saw a question on there. Yes, I did intern with Goldman before I got the job. I interned my junior year, going into my senior year.
All right. So my role is a little bit different because it's consulting. So basically with consulting, they want to make sure that you're trained and you're pretty knowledgeable in the field that you're going to be consulting in before you actually start going out and working with clients. So the past 2 or 3 months, was it 2 months now, has just been training, very on hand, training about data sense making, pretty much a lot of BDM concepts. So if you're taking that class right now, I urge you to pay attention if you do want to go into consulting. And right now we are working on our capstone training project called AdventureWorks. It's from Microsoft. And basically we're given a bunch of data in basically SQL format. And using that, we kind of have to build an application for an example client called AdventureWorks, which our company kind of just made up to mimic a real client situation. So my day-to-day right now is pretty much just been trying to figure out that data problem and create an application for this capstone project.
So right now, my day-to-day, I'm also getting acclimated to my team. Our team has 4 specific products in and of itself. So on the entities team, we deal with corporate hierarchy. So when companies restructure themselves and change their parent companies and change their subsidiaries, things like that. We also deal with country of risks, which is the country that will get all the risk if a company, let's say, goes bankrupt, like which country will have to deal with their debt. And one of the biggest products we have is our sanctions product, which essentially sanctions are placing restrictions on either a whole country, that's full sanction, or specific companies or people in another country. So sanctions are placed if you want to put economic pressure on someone, saying like, you can't trade with this specific company because they're doing something bad and we don't like that. So we have to, on the terminal, change all that information and say, hey, don't trade on this, because if you do, you'll get fined, we'll get fined, everyone will get fined, everyone will like lose their credibility. So that's really important in my day-to-day, just to make sure we have like web crawlers that'll go through websites to make sure that if sanctions come out, we get them on time and we change them on the system on time. So that's really important on my day-to-day. And another part of my day-to-day is helping clients. So clients can come in and ask questions to us specific to our team, like asking to confirm data or asking why something looks like this. So we'd have to answer them. So we have like blocks of time where we do that.
Yeah, thank you all for that little background on your kind of current role and everything. So to move into our second question, we want to know a little bit about some of the challenging as well as the rewarding parts about transitioning from being a student to working full-time.
Yeah, so challenging. I think it's interesting to go from being in charge of your schedule in the sense of you determine your own classes, you determine when you work, and when you find blocks of time to spend with the people you love and doing the things that you're passionate about. And so it's really interesting to go from that into like an 8-hour a day structure where you're pretty much coming into the office around like 8 or 9 a.m. and then working until however long. So that was definitely like a little bit of a challenge, is getting used to that structure. I think also another challenge is that you really have to be intentional about carving out time to spend with people that you care about, like I said, and doing the other things that you want to do. Because if you let it, I think a lot of jobs, like you can pick up a lot more responsibilities, you can dedicate however many hours you really want to that job, and the company is always going to be like open for that, and there's always work to be done. So I think that's really challenging, is like placing that structure in place and having that balance in your life. I think one of the rewarding parts is, of course, like the money, right? Like, I think it's really, really cool to make a full-time salary and be able to have the opportunity and the privilege to buy things that you didn't necessarily have an opportunity to before. I think I'm definitely like one of those people who like loves picking up like a lot of new hobbies and stuff. So when I was in Austin, one of the things that I did was pick up like tango. I went bouldering. And I think like having that money and like being in a new place really affords you those opportunities to do that. I think another thing about moving into a full-time role that is kind of exciting too is that you're going to be challenged by people who are working in the same passion as you. I think in college, like you have a diverse and wide group of friends, which is really nice to like change your or challenge your perspective. But at the same time, like being in a supply chain field, like I feel like I'm learning so much more about supply chain management. I'm learning so much about like different parts of the business than I did in like the supply chain classes, even at Rutgers. I think also like I learn a lot about things like harmonization and visualization, and things like coordinating data sources so that you have like a central source of truth. And I think you get an opportunity to speak with amazing leaders who are sometimes like on the news, and I think there's a lot that you can learn from them. So I think the opportunity and access to great mentors is really, really cool in full-time roles as well. And hopefully, like Omkar said, you're working in a field that you're passionate about. So always like dedicating your time to something that doesn't feel like wasted effort is definitely super, super rewarding.
So for me, probably one of the most challenging parts, this is something that I've told all of the new analysts that have started, the way that, and I think it's very specific to how your program works, but for me, the same team that I interned on, I came back to the same exact team full time. So I had the same manager, I had relatively the same team. There were a couple people that moved around, but other than that, the people were mostly the same. And coming back, one of the biggest things was differentiating yourself from being an intern to now being a full-time analyst. It's so important, and I tell like all the new analysts this again, that like you don't want to be known as the returning intern. You want to be known as a full-time analyst. And so it was challenging in the beginning just to be able to differentiate that and like know the difference between, obviously you're gonna be treated the same way as you were in, like everyone's super friendly, everyone's still the same, but as an intern, there's maybe less responsibility for you, there's less that's on the line. As an analyst, now you're not just there to get the full-time offer back, you're gonna be there because you want to grow in your career, you wanna learn more, you wanna be promoted, stuff like that. So just knowing that and having that in like the back of your mind when you're there was so important, and like challenging probably in the first couple of months till you're getting the hang of it, and like going through the motions and actually like setting yourself there as an individual and like as a full-time analyst or whatever is called in your roles. Probably the most rewarding though, this is sort of like what Sid was saying, is just meeting people and like growing your network. When you're at Rutgers and like when you're in school, you're really meeting people that are juniors, seniors, like around the same age group as you, who are either in the business school, so like they do have similar interests, but like everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But when you're at work, it's very much so that you are meeting people that are peers. Like you're working with people that are definitely going to be older than you. You will be the youngest on the team because you just started. And it's just like expanding your network that way. Like I've met so many of what I call like now my best friends through work, and like my coworkers are really some of my bestest friends, and like getting to meet them, even like when we're out going out after work, like getting to see them, it's something that if you weren't working, if you were just at Rutgers like in Jersey, you wouldn't have got to meet all these different people from so many different backgrounds like all over the world. So that's probably like one of my favorite parts about starting full-time.
Yeah, I think those are very accurate responses. I have a lot of the same answers to this question. In terms of what was the most challenging thing for me, I think it was actually getting accustomed to that 9 to 5 routine and actually finding the patience to sit down through that entire thing for the first week. I know that was very rough for me because it's not something that I've been accustomed to, especially since we moved to online classes and everything. So that was definitely challenging. In terms of rewarding, I think Sid and Tanya both touched on this. When you go into the workplace in a full-time role, you're going to meet a lot of really smart people, especially if you're in a field where there's other people that are doing the same thing as you. So you're going to have a lot of people to bounce ideas off, but that could also be a little discouraging. And you might start to question how smart you are, how capable you actually are. So that is a little bit challenging, but the other aspect of that is that it's also very rewarding being able to have people to, again, bounce these ideas off of that are actually knowledgeable about the same things that you are. So I think that goes a little bit both ways. And obviously, like Sid mentioned, having your own financial independence and making your own salary is a extremely rewarding part, at least for me. You're able to kind of do more of the things that you want to do, that you enjoy. I know Sid mentioned bouldering and something else, which was very interesting, and I'm going to ask him about that after. But yeah, that's what I got to go with.
Yeah, also very similar to what Tanya was saying. Like when I first came into this full-time role, I was also an intern after my junior year going into my senior year. And one of the first things that we were told during training was you need to learn how to set yourself apart even within your team. So they suggested, become a subject matter expert on something so that everyone around you knows, oh, Aneri is the go-to on this product, or Tanya is the go-to on this other product. So they know what value you bring to their team as well. So that's something more challenging, especially as a new hire, because sometimes you'll still be learning. Like even though I interned last summer, there are some things that I wasn't taught because I was only there for 10 weeks and they thought let's get her on a project where she can make a difference. So now I'm learning about it, and it's harder for me to think of okay, what can I become an expert in? And obviously you want to try to do it as soon as possible, but you're not going to be able to do it that fast. I've been in this role a little bit over a month, and I'm not a subject matter expert yet. It's going to take a while because you learn on the job every day, especially when you're first starting. So that's something that's challenging, but it's also a piece of advice that I like to keep in my mind to keep me going. And similarly, one of the most rewarding things is that you get to experience a whole different group of people, like also Tanya said, at work, especially when you can join a company that has a lot of cross-functionality. So some companies, it's you're on a team and that's it. You're with them 24/7 and you don't get to experience other people and what they're doing. But it's good to join a company that will, you know, let you work with other teams on certain products, that'll let you communicate with them on a daily basis. So that's something that's really rewarding, is for me to be able to see other people's insights and how our products like work together to help clients and things like that.
Yeah, thank you all so much for that. So to kind of segue into our next section of questions, we want to know a little bit about your experience with BAIT and at Rutgers in general. So BAIT is an extremely versatile major, and that's kind of shown through just the fact that all of you work in vastly different careers. So how were you able to kind of realize that a certain career path was meant for you?
Do you guys want to go the other way around this time so that it kind of like varies things up a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. So when I first declared my BAIT major, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go into something really coding related. I want to be really heavy tech, and that's my career. And slowly I understood that that's not what I wanted through taking BAIT classes. I really appreciated the like Python classes, like foundation and things like that, but I realized I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So I think BAIT, with the classes you take, especially the electives, you can really weed through the different types of careers. So if you take more coding heavy classes and you enjoy them and you continue to do that in your electives and you enjoy that, you could say, okay, yeah, I want to do this for my career. But if you are more into analytics and statistical probability, you can take classes like that as well and think, okay, is this something I want to do? So that was my kind of path. I was like, used my electives to kind of figure out, do I want I'm super tech heavy? Do I not want to go in that direction? And I ended up choosing something I'm not very tech heavy in my role right now. I am a global business concentration. Yeah, I did a global business concentration. So that was something I was really interested in. And I got that with Bloomberg because they're an international company, one, so we deal with clients from all over the world and we can see what problems they may have compared to our clients here in the United States. And I was more prepared for that. So I liked the combination of, you know, using some of my BAIT skills from SQL and a little bit of Python and some of my skills that I learned from my global business classes to kind of mesh them together into this role. And finding Bloomberg was kind of like the perfect fit with all that.
Yeah, those are great points. BAIT is obviously a very, very versatile major, and you kind of take it however you interpret the major. For me, like I mentioned, and like Sid and Musa did, I did supply chain and BAIT. And even though I didn't really know much about supply chain going into college, I figured it was a major that I could understand and at least add some flavor to my resume that shows that I'm capable of doing other things aside from analytics. In terms of my actual career path and moving into analytics consulting, I think that definitely started my freshman year with my first internship that I had. And this was just like a basic internship at a small place that one of my dad's friends knew. But my work there was doing business intelligence and data visualization work. And ever since working with that and Power BI my freshman year, I kind of fell in love with it. And it's been something that I practice on every summer and kind of made it a goal to work on, even if I worked at Prudential one summer and that had nothing to do with analytics, especially in my department. But I kind of pushed on my manager because that was something that I was really interested in. So, kind of tying that back in, if you do find a path that you really enjoy in your career at Rutgers, definitely just, go into it both feet and learn as much as you can about it, because you never know when it'll come back around and, might be your full-time job like it is with me. So, yeah.
For me, it's probably not the best representation of a BAIT student, but going into BAIT, I knew I didn't want to do coding. Like, I was like, I don't want to code. I don't want to do it. I picked BAIT because of the analytics part of it, because of the stats part, because of all the cool like forecasting things. I loved stats for business. I loved the other class that I can't remember because it's been 2 years that we took after that with Gersoy or like the other professor. Super cool class. I love classes like those where like you're doing more like Excel modeling or you're doing more of like statistical analysis kind of thing. So that's the reason why Bates spoke to me. I hated my coding classes. But because of that, going into it, I also knew that I wanted to work in finance, and I knew that I wanted to have a finance role with some of that like statistical or like financial analytical parts of it. And I think even though right now, obviously, like I don't use Python, I don't use R, I don't use any of the coding languages that we learned in our classes, but what I do use is like that analytical mindset. Like I do use all of those skill sets that we've learned in those like variety of classes. So I knew I wanted to work in a bank, but I also knew that I wanted to do something more analytical. So that's really why I picked my major. Also, when you're interviewing, BAIT is a really cool major. And like when you're interviewing, everyone is like very, very impressed by it, as they should be, because first, I think it's the only major, BAIT, Rutgers is the only school that offers BAIT as a major, like all tied up in a nice little bow for you. So it's like the best way to speak to your skills, and you can go literally anywhere. Like you can see from here, I have friends who like, even like prior eBoard, who was like working like super like data science at Facebook, or like doing something like me, like completely unrelated. So there's just so many places where you could go, which is why honestly I picked it.
Yeah, I think everyone hit on some really good points there. I think for me, honestly, it kind of like what Tanya said, I knew that I didn't want to be coding day in, day out. I really like interacting with a lot of different people and talking more. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to have like, I wanted to back my responses or back my like workflow and how I problem solve with data, as well as like something that's rooted in numbers and have like a good problem solving method. So I think BAIT really enabled me to do that. I think even now, what really differentiates me from a lot of my peers is that I'm usually like one of the people to like not take what we see with a grain of salt. Or rather take what we see with a grain of salt. And I think I'm more analytical than a lot of my peers. I think a good example of this, for instance, was a few weeks ago, we were working on an inventory optimization model for the different parts in our portfolio. And basically what that means is, what is the optimal amount of inventory that you should hold in order to support the demand that's going to come in the future? And there was a team that we were working with, like an IT team, where they ran this model and then they spewed out a number. And they were like, oh, this is the one that you should use and everything. And everyone else was like, oh yeah, sure, let's go for it. But I was like, no, I don't know what based that number. I want you to walk me through exactly what you did. And I want to see, and I want to run these numbers myself as well. And so I feel like it's probably like BAIT that really enabled me to think a little bit more like that, and it gave me a lot of those problem solving skills that I mentioned and those analytical skills. So I think it's a really critical major. It's probably one of the best majors at Rutgers, especially in the business school. And I think you have some really great professors who kind of are able to inform you in those, to think in those lines. So yeah.
Thank you for all of your responses for that question. For this next one, you guys did touch on it a little bit. So just in terms of like how BAIT courses prepare you for your job. But you know, since we kind of already went over that, what technical skills should BAIT majors focus on building outside of the classroom? And it doesn't even like have to be, I guess, BAIT skills specifically, but what skills did you learn in whatever role you are outside of the classroom that helps you now?
Yeah, I'm gonna let everyone else go on this one because I think I touched on a few of those points, and I think everyone else knows a lot more about the technical skills, and we can come back if you guys want to know about the other skills.
Yeah, I mean, I can give an answer to this because BDM was actually like very, very closely related to my training that I was doing, and I didn't realize until like a week in that I should have been paying more attention in that class. So if you guys do have an opportunity, or if you're taking that class sometime soon, it might seem a little boring in the time because it's all just like theoretical information. But if you do end up going down a field where you need to kind of be a subject matter expert in an IT or analytics type role. This is going to be that class is going to be very important to learn, the basic concepts of like normalization, and just basic data modeling. So that's something that I want to make sure you guys know if you do want to go into consulting or any kind of IT heavy related field. In terms of actual technical skills, a lot of what I use in my roles are SQL and other like data viz tools. The one that I mainly use right now is ClickSense, but the main industry leaders are like Power BI, Tableau. Google has actually came out with their own recently. So if you do have free time and you just want to work on something on the weekends, I'd suggest kind of just building your own practice project and making a quick kind of data visualization model. It's pretty fun and it's kind of easy to do in my opinion. So that's my advice.
I think it also depends on what you are looking to do with your future career path. So like Omkar was saying, he's in more of like a data visualization kind of area. So SQL is very important there. But if you're looking, like for me, it wasn't a required skill when I was interviewing for Bloomberg, but knowing those baseline, like a little bit of Python, like doing like simple queries really sets you apart. And I think, or at least in Bloomberg, like Python is very widely used. So they really like if you have that on your resume, even if you know a little bit of it. And even SQL is important because we have these huge like databases. So we do SQL pulls to see like how our SLAs are doing. Like, are we meeting our agreements with our vendors? Are they up to par on their jobs as well? So I think like even Googling like, oh, I want to be in the data analysis field, like which technical skills, like what coding skills should I know? Because even R is great for visualization as well. So there's no right answer. Like if you have certain technical skills, you should put them on your resume. You should speak about them, how you learn them, because they're not going to be like, oh, R instead of Python. Like if it's a super like software engineering role, then maybe they'll be like, okay, no. But for a lot of roles, like analyst roles that BAIT majors go for, if you have knowledge in one language above another, they're going to be like, hey, this person took initiative, learned this language. If we need someone in Python, they could learn it because they already know R. Like they have shown that initiative, they could do it. So like, let's take a bet on this person. Let's take a chance on this person. So really doing your own research and saying like, I really want to work for this company. What should I know? Will kind of tell you a lot.
I kind of already mentioned like in terms of technical skills, like purely BAIT technical skills, I probably don't use as much, but I still consider these technical skills. I think that something that you don't really learn, I would say, in any of your Rutgers class, like business school classes at all, is like the basic things like how to send an email, like when's an appropriate time to communicate via email, via IM, via a phone call, and things like that are definitely something that like communication should be stressed, and you're going to need it on all of your jobs, regardless of what field you go into, what part of BAIT or what part of like the industry that you go into. Just knowing when and how to communicate effectively, and then also knowing how to work together in like teams. And that's something that is like a very cliche answer, and people are gonna be like, teamwork is important, but like you don't realize it until you're actually on the job and you're like, I'm talking to like 30 people a day. I sit next to, or used to sit next to, like all of my coworkers. If I have a question, I can just go to them and ask them. It's so important to like have those skills in. You're not going to ever succeed in a career if people don't like you. Like if you are not a fun person to, like not even a fun person, if you're not a good person to work with, if you like can't collaborate, if you hate like answering people's questions, if you hate asking questions, you're not going to be able to succeed. So like I still consider those technical skills that you should have and that you should learn while you're on the job. or like even through one of my favorite parts too about Rutgers was like being a management major. It's such a small major, no one does it. But of course I did. And you learn so many like random things, like stuff that I wouldn't learn in any other classes. It's very like hands-on, teamwork-based classes for all of the major. And it's something that I can speak to whenever I'm on interviews. Another minor thing, which I thought like really speaks to people who don't want to do like a very programming heavy role right now, is that being an ABATE major, I do have that background. Like I did learn Python, I did learn R. I used to not have it on my resume just because I was like, I don't want to do it. And I also don't feel confident enough about it. Speaking to mentors on the job too, they were saying, and they had mentioned to me, which is really important, is even having that base, like that background, even having those 3 classes that you took at Rutgers, that's more than what a lot of people have. So keep it on your resume. Don't lie about it. Obviously, you can put in like educational background of Python, R, and whatever if you don't feel confident enough in your skills, and if you don't see yourself like actually doing it. But even like having that background, like knowing how to open up like a Python script, or like knowing how to open these things up, people don't know about. So don't discount yourself when you're applying to things and when it's on your resume too.
Well, yeah, definitely. Thank you for all of your responses. Now moving on to one question. This doesn't have to be fate specific, but in general, what was, the most rewarding aspect of your Rutgers experience?
I need to think about that. Does anyone else have an answer?
I could start. I think the first thing that came into my mind was the people that I met. And like, I feel like you can tell, like, I love working with, like, I love people. Like, I love to talk. I love, like, regardless of it, what it is, like, I think being at Rutgers, again, it was the people that you meet. Like, my best friends, I met them all on campus. All the different things that you could be involved in, like being a part of BITS, I was president of Women in Business. So like being a part of different organizations while you're on campus and just having those connections are so, so important too. And then like being able to come back to things like this is like when you're like, there's such a big Rutgers like network at Goldman. So like being able to talk to people that went to Rutgers at Goldman, or like being able to talk to your friends who work at other banks or like in other industries and getting to meet them. Rutgers being such a big school, that's like one of my favorite parts about it, is that you'll always find someone somewhere that like knows what it is, has been there on their own. Also, I think what's really important is like not just the people, like the friends and people that you meet, but also the professional connections that you make. So for example, if it's professors or if it's like coworkers, if you have an on-campus job. I was a business school ambassador, so I worked at the dean's office in the business school, and Donna Brancato was like our manager, and she still like emails me every now and then. Like it's so nice to like be able to have those connections and like meet people through there and then continue that moving forward. Like I know if I ever needed something, if I ever wanted to come back to Rutgers, like I know who to ask. And it's so, so nice to have that network that you already built and keep that strong throughout your next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean that kind of covers it, to be honest. Like I was trying to think of any other answer I could possibly give, but it's been the people. Every step of the way, like even freshman year, whether it was just meeting people in the quads, like where I lived, or going to classes and having study groups, building that camaraderie was really kind of what I was left with from Rutgers. And that could be for everything. Obviously, this is in the context of BATE, and that's definitely in there when you guys are studying, like the night before an exam or helping each other with homework. But also, just having like friends to rely on, going out on Friday nights at Rutgers, staying in, watching a movie. All that stuff kind of works with your mental health and keeping you sane while you're also able to complete your classes or do the other work that you've been doing. So for me, what kind of got me through Rutgers and got me through college was just having people to rely on, and having different networks that I can go to for different problems that I do have. So that's something that I definitely miss, and I urge you guys to take advantage of while you're still in college.
Yeah, I think similarly, Tanya and Omkar kind of covered everything. But one of the things that someone told me a little bit later on at Rutgers was that, you know, in most of us like are in the business school, we're looking at a BAIT major, so it's very easy to get honed in on your extracurriculars also being about business, about BAIT, which isn't a bad thing. It's really good to get to know other people who are also pursuing other business majors, or people. BAIT is getting so big that you won't know everyone in your major as well. So it's also good to, you know, meet those people in BIDS, but it's also good to kind of diversify and have, you know, friends in other places, just so you're not just talking about like business all the time. So someone told me, if you're looking to join clubs, like do something that you're interested in based on your majors. That could be like BIDS, that could be like anything in the business school. Do something with service, so any like service organization or an organization that has service as a part of it, and focus on something like in the Rutgers community. So you kind of get like a trifecta of, you know, you get to know people in your professional area, you get to know people who at Rutgers from all different places, and you get to make an impact in the community as well. So if you're looking to kind of diversify what you know and who you know, that was like a good kind of introduction for me.
Yeah, I think everyone else covered it. Those were really good responses.